Hail, fellow travelers! I'm Tim from Secret Fire Books, and today I'm going to be working with some real powerful arcane stuff. For you see, this is something of a long overdue companion piece to my somewhat popular, somewhat well-received Beginner's Guide to Sword and Sorcery video. But this time around, I wanted to do a ranking video. I wanted to compile a definitive list of the top 7 greatest sword and sorcery stories ever written. Because in my opinion, sword and sorcery is really at its best when written in the short form. Why top 7 and not top 10, you may ask? We'll get to that. So, in order to create a totally legit, totally objective, totally not opinionated list of the greatest heroic fantasy tales ever told, I could do one of two things. I could actually put in the time and effort to do some research, maybe get some focus groups together, some peer-reviewed studies, and extract the data from all those. Or I could use magic. And why not do it that way? After all,
I'm a wizard, mind you.
As you can see, I have my mighty wizard staff, I'm dressed in my traditional wizarding robes, and I've put together a stack of material components, which I intend to break down on a molecular level and transmute into the aforementioned list that I desire. However, in order to perform this highly complicated, possibly dangerous ritual, I will need to speak the incantation in the native language of the great old ones, and I know that some of you viewers may be sensitive to that kind of thing. So, for those of you with low constitution or wisdom saving throws, you might want to mute the video for the next couple seconds. Alright, let's get started. Scramble! Thrim! Threm! Thraboom! Huh. Well, that wasn't so complicated after all. Wonder how much mana that's going to take out of my system. Oh, there it goes. Oh. Now I know what summoning sickness must feel like. Well, in any case, I did get the list. So, let's dig into it. These are the 7 greatest sword and sorcery stories ever written. The Savage 7. Told you I had a good reason.
Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Roger Zelazny is usually more well known for his mind-bending science fiction novels and his genre-blending epic, The Chronicles of Amber, but he has also written his fair share of traditional heroic fantasy. This story features his recurring character, Dilvish the Damned, a half-elven adventurer and mercenary seeking to exact revenge on the evil wizard who trapped him in the underworld for 200 years. Together with his trusted companion, the demonic horse known as Black, he wanders through lands both enchanted and mundane, encountering all manner of threats in his seemingly endless quest for vengeance. In The Bells of Shoredan, Dilvish travels to the ruins of a remote mountaintop city to find the fabled bells whose ringing is said to awaken an army of undead souls. Much like Tolkien's Dead Men of Dunharrow, these doomed legions serve those who summon them, and are an invincible force that can turn the tide of a battle against their enemies. In search of these bells, Dilvish traverses treacherous terrain, wields wondrous weapons, and faces down fearsome phantasms slavering for his soul. In this tale, Zelazny takes every tried-and-true trope of sword and sorcery and amps it up to the maximum. Anyone who loves a good sword-swinging adventure would be a fool to miss out on this one.
High adventure.
Perhaps the most notorious figure in the realm of sword and sorcery is the grim warrior known as Cain the Mystic Swordsman. This dark creation of horror writer and editor Karl Edward Wagner, Cain is no hero. He's barely even an anti-hero. Warlock and warlord, murderer and marauder, the red-haired giant wreaks death and destruction wherever he goes, cursed to live throughout eternity as an immortal pariah. Now I should mention that Wagner hated the term sword and sorcery, preferring to label his own work as gothic fantasy. But, sorry, Karl, dark and depressing as your material may be, that label is reserved purely for tales of a decidedly more refined aristocratic style. You write pulpy stories about big hairy men who carve each other up with pointy bits of metal. Sword and sorcery will do just fine, thank you. Reflections for the Winter of My Soul sees Kane and several other characters trapped in an isolated ancient castle during a winter storm. To their horror, the castle dwellers find that one of their number is hiding a monstrous secret. There is a werewolf loose in the snowed-in citadel, and night after night, as victims are slaughtered one by one, the horrified humans, Kane included, soon turn on one another. Betrayals and backstabbings become a common occurrence, culminating in, quite possibly, one of the most brutal, awe-inspiring battles of man versus monster ever put to print. If you've ever wanted a dark fantasy version of Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, look no further than Reflections for the Winter of My Soul. But be warned, it is not a tale for the faint of heart.
High adventure.
One of the most overlooked masters of classic sword and sorcery is American political journalist Charles Robert Saunders, who was also one of the first black writers to achieve popularity with heroic fantasy stories in the 1970s, thanks to his regular appearances in comic artist Gene Day's fanzine, Dark Fantasy. It was in the pages of this small press publication that his mighty sword-swinging hero, Imaro, was born. Adventuring in a fantastical, prehistoric Africa, Imaro wrestled wild animals, commanded armies of bloodthirsty brigands, and prevailed over supernatural evils with iron thews every bit as vascular as Conan's. The Place of Stones is an early chapter in Imaro's life, in which the young warrior's coming-of-age trial, a ceremonial lion hunt, is foiled, and Imaro is betrayed by his own tribesmen. However, our hero is far too strong-willed to take this treachery lying down, and he quickly escapes, eager to dish out revenge on his traitors. However, Imaro's quest for retribution will take him places he could scarcely imagine, and pit his strength and courage against powers from beyond mortal perception. Not only is this story bristling with action and necromantic magic, it also exhibits Saunders' trademark social commentary, tackling issues of elitism, prejudice, and bigotry. Imaro's traitorous tribesmen turn on him for no other reason that he is, in their eyes, a half-breed, his father being from an entirely different tribe, thus making him an outcast in their society. As a savvy writer with his hand on the pulse of the political and social dynamics of his time, Saunders weaves these hard-hitting topics flawlessly into this story, without sacrificing the frenetic pace and bloody action. If you want sword and sorcery of an entirely original flavor, Imaro is your man.
High adventure.
When the editor of Science Fantasy magazine asked British New Wave writer Michael Moorcock to write a story in the vein of Robert E. Howard's Conan, what he got was the exact opposite. The Dreaming City is, in almost every way, the antithesis of a typical heroic fantasy adventure, and yet it remains to this day one of the greatest and most influential examples of the genre. Marking the first appearance of Elric of Melniboné, Moorcock's tale follows the albino emperor's return to his homeland at the head of a fleet of warships. Exiled from his own kingdom, Elric seeks to storm the dreaming city of Imrir, rescue his captive lover Cimmeril, and punish his traitorous cousin Yirkun. In doing so, Elric must confront his own friends and allies, carving a bloody swath through his former home with the soul-ripping edge of a demonic sword named Stormbringer. Will Elric regain his ruby throne and rule Melniboné once more, or will Yirkun have the last laugh? This dreary drama of dark magic is truly one for the ages.
High adventure.
Catherine Lucille Moore really was the queen of strange fiction. Not only was she a fantastic storyteller in her own right, she was also married to fellow Weird Tales magazine alum Henry Kuttner, forming one of the greatest literary power couples ever known. But before she and hubby were collaborating on a bibliography that would put any other author to shame, Moore was an up-and-coming amateur writer, inspired by the work of her contemporaries Howard, Smith, and Lovecraft. Some of her earlier stories featured the proud, red-haired warrior woman Jirel of Joiry, a sword maiden whose unbridled fury was matched only by the paranormal creatures she encountered in her journeys across our world and the realms beyond. In The Black God's Kiss, Jirel's kingdom of Joiry is invaded and overtaken by the armies of the haughty warlord Gwillam, who imprisons our heroine in the dungeons of her own castle after humiliating her with a cruel, unwanted kiss. After managing to escape her cell, Jirel, incensed with rage, makes it her goal to destroy Lord Gwillam in the most brutal way she knows how. She publishes a stinging hit piece about him on the internet, getting him cancelled from social media. No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to obtain a curse that will trap his soul in limbo for all eternity. But these two things are quite similar, I suppose. The creeping, nightmarish atmosphere Moore invokes in this story is unlike anything I've ever read before or since in all of Sword and Sorcery. Jarrell is among the most complex protagonists in the genre. While this story happens to be the best, every story in the Jarrell cycle is an absolute treat, head and shoulders above many of its Weird Tales peers.
High adventure.
Within the world of fantasy fiction, few duos are quite as dynamic as Fafford and the Grey Mouser, created by master pulpster Fritz Leiber. And of all the adventures shared by this intrepid twosome, few exhibit their bonds of brotherhood and their creators' literary chops quite like Bazaar of the Bizarre. Taking place in the duo's old haunt, the dismal, crime-ridden city of Lankmar, the story first follows the Mouser as he happens upon an eccentric merchant and his recently opened storefront. Within the stranger's shop are all manner of wondrous things: enchanted weapons, tomes of eldritch spells, exotic animals, magic potions, baubles of arcane design, and even sultry slave girls who seem strangely eager to be purchased. The Mouser is in heaven, but things, of course, are not as they seem. Fafford, late in joining his friend the Bazaar, is quickly summoned by the mysterious wizards Shielba and Ningobble, who see the city's new merchant for what he truly is, and desire to see him banished from this plane of existence as well. Equipping Fafford with some enchanted gear and a few cryptic warnings, the patron sorcerers send the hapless barbarian on his way. Now Fafford must brave the dangers that dwell within the illusory emporium, save his friend from ensorcelment, and send an otherworldly alien threat back to the ether from whence it came. Fritz Leiber, the man who gave Sword and Sorcery its name, could craft one heck of a story. Bazaar of the Bizarre is a thrilling tale of magic and mayhem, showcasing the author's quick wit, poetic prose, and endlessly creative vision. Truly, there is only one example of heroic fantasy that can top it.
Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Don't tell me you honestly didn't expect a Conan story to be at the top of this list. The truth of the matter is, without Robert E. Howard, there is no Sword and Sorcery. Not only did the so-called King of Pulps invent the genre, but his most enduring character, Conan the Cimmerian, codified it, paving the way for many aspiring authors of blood and thunder storytelling to come. In truth, there easily could have been any other Conan story atop this list of savagery. The barbarian hero's many adventures are rarely lacking in quality. However, the Tower of the Elephant is perhaps the purest distillation of all the elements that make Conan Conan, and by that metric, what makes heroic fantasy heroic fantasy. For those few of you who somehow still haven't read this story, allow me to set the scene. Night has fallen upon Zamora. The streets and lowly stone buildings of the City of Thieves are swathed in shadows. Only one structure glitters in the darkness, the jewel-encrusted tower of Yara the Sorcerer. In a seedy tavern on the other side of town, a boisterous Kothian is busy rambling about a legendary gemstone known as the Heart of the Elephant, kept hidden away in the wizard's tower. All who listen to the rogue's tale shake their heads in resignation. None, not even the wiliest cut person Zamora, would dare to steal such a gem, not while old Yara still lives and his dark magic still infests the tower. Except for one. He is a young wanderer from the northern climes, Conan the Cimmerian. With visions of wealth and glory filling his savage brain, he sets off for the wizard's tower, with nothing but a knife and his own unshakable courage. If you have not yet experienced the magic of Robert E. Howard's Conan series, I cannot recommend a more worthy starting point than this very story. It is, quite simply, the best. Do you agree with this list? Did you get some good recommendations? Let me know in the comments below. And whatever the case, I hope you'll join me in my next video. Until then, as always, farewell and keep reading. No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to... No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to obtain a court... No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell. No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to... No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to obtain a court... Oh my gosh. No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to obtain a No, just kidding. She opens a portal to hell in order to obtain a curse that will trap his soul in limbo for all eternity. What's the matter, bud? Hi. Yes, I love you too. Go back.